Deeper truth. Every defeat carries with it the seed of an equivalent advantage, so long as your mind is fertile ground. But here's the truth most people miss. You don't lose because you're unlucky. You lose because you think like a loser. There's a mental poison, subtle and contagious, that infects more people than failure ever could. It's a mindset, a way of thinking that guarantees defeat before the game even begins. In this video, I'll show you the exact mental traps that keep 98% of people stuck in mediocrity. The deeper truth. If you've ever felt like you were meant for more but can't seem to break through, you'll want to hear every word of this. Let's expose the thoughts that are silently killing your potential, and how to rewire your mind for victory. There is a silent enemy living in the minds of millions, and it wears the mask of realism. It whispers that your dreams are too big, your time has passed, or that success is only for the lucky few. This enemy is not visible to the naked eye, but its damage is unmistakable. It's the mindset of defeat, the quiet voice that convinces you to quit before you've even begun. It's the single greatest saboteur of success. And worse still, it doesn't need to lift a finger to destroy you. All it needs is your belief. The man who thinks he will fail has already sealed his fate. The moment you believe defeat is likely, you unconsciously begin to act in ways that ensure it becomes your reality. You take fewer risks, exert less effort, and surrender faster when adversity strikes. The universe responds not just to action, but to intention, and your intention is always shaped by belief. What you expect is often what you receive. Not because of magic, but because your actions, driven by your thinking, create your outcomes. Now understand this, you were not born with a defeatist mind. It was conditioned into you by your environment, your experiences, and your repeated acceptance of limitation. Children don't dream small. They imagine becoming astronauts, inventors, presidents, and kings. They see possibility everywhere. Somewhere along the line, life's disappointments, combined with the doubts of others, begin to form mental scars, and those scars become stories. Stories like the deeper truth. I'm not good enough. I'll never make it. Or people like me don't succeed. These stories are the bricks of the prison called mediocrity. The deeper truth, most dangerous about defeatist thinking, is how reasonable it sounds. It often masquerades as caution, humility, or logic. You say you're being realistic, but what you're really doing is building a case against your own potential. You see, the mind always tries to justify its beliefs, whether those beliefs lift you up or tear you down. If you believe you're destined to lose, your mind will start collecting evidence to support that belief. Every mistake becomes proof. Every delay becomes confirmation. And soon, the belief becomes your truth, the deeper truth. But let me give you a hard truth in return. No great achievement has ever come from a person who believed they were doomed to fail. The individual who wins in life is not the one who was given the best starting hand, but the one who refuses to fold, even when the odds are stacked, even when others laugh, even when defeat seems inevitable. Why? Because they understand that circumstances are temporary, but belief is eternal. What you think about yourself will outlast every setback, every closed door, and every no you ever hear. Defeat in battle is not the same as defeat in mind. A man can lose 1,000 times and still be undefeated, so long as he refuses to accept defeat as permanent. It's when you internalize failure that it becomes fatal. Think of the great innovators, the groundbreakers, the icons of industry. How many of them were told they were crazy, unqualified, too ambitious, or delusional? Had they accepted those labels, we would never know their names. But they didn't. Because they understood the power to define their life resided not in the opinions of others, but in the thoughts they held in their own minds. Let me put it plainly, if you believe success is beyond your reach, you will never stretch your hand far enough to grasp it. You will play it safe. You'll settle. You'll shrink to fit the box you've placed yourself in. And then you'll look back with regret and wonder why life never gave you more. But life doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to expectation. And expectation is rooted in belief. Think of your mind as a garden. Thoughts are seeds. A defeatist thought is like planting a weed that will choke out your potential. If you continue to feed that weed with fear, doubt, and negative self-talk, it will grow fast. And soon, it will overrun the fertile ground where greatness was meant to grow. You must be vigilant with your thinking. You must pull out the weeds of defeat and replace them with seeds of victoring thoughts of confidence, determination, and unshakable purpose. This is not about blind optimism. It's about intentional conditioning. Just as a bodybuilder strengthens his muscles through resistance, you must strengthen your mind by confronting and overcoming your limiting beliefs. It is a deliberate daily practice. Affirm your purpose. Visualize your success. Speak life into your goals. Surround yourself with those who remind you of what's possible, not what's improbable. The mind becomes whatever it is fed. Feed it excellence. And here's something else few will tell you. The thinking like a winner doesn't mean you never have doubts. It means you don't dwell in them. The person with a winning mindset still hears the voice of fear, but they refuse to obey it. They still face setbacks, the deeper truth. They refuse to personalize them. They still encounter failures, but they see them as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. Because once you internalize the truth that your thoughts create your outcomes, you gain the power to rewrite your story. You stop waiting for luck. You stop blaming the world. And you begin to build your life from the inside out. Defeatist thinking is not humble. It's destructive. It cheats you out of your gifts. It lies to you. It tells you your best days are behind you, that you're too late, too broken, or too ordinary. And every time you listen, you give it more control. But the moment you reject that voice, the moment you say, "No more," you reclaim your power. You were never meant to live at the mercy of your fears. You were born with the capacity to shape reality through your thoughts, your focus, and your will. Do not betray that gift by thinking small. The deeper truth, change your thoughts, and you'll change your life. Defeat, and you will be defeated. Think victory, and nothing can stop you. There is a pattern that shows up in the lives of the unsuccessful. It is not always poverty. It is not always misfortune. It is not even ignorance. No, the pattern is far more subtle and far more dangerous. It is the constant, clever, and consistent use of excuses. This is the language spoken fluently by those who never reach their potential. It is the dialect of the uncommitted, the vocabulary of those who dream big but act small. Excuses come dressed in logic, but they are built on fear. They masquerade as reason, but they are woven from doubt. They sound smart, even persuasive. But make no mistake, excuses are chains, and every time you use one, you are forging another link in the prison of your own making. Listen to how they're sounding. I don't have time. It's not the right moment. Need more experience. I don't have the money. I'm not ready. These phrases are not reflections of truth. They are declarations of hesitation. They are what the mind creates when commitment is absent and courage is missing. The moment you begin to justify an action, you have already betrayed the cause of your own progress. You must understand that the wants results will find a way, while the person who lacks commitment will find an excuse. This is not about external resources. It's about internal resolve. History is filled with men and women who succeeded despite enormous odds. They lacked time, money, support, and experience. What they had was resolve. While others were rehearsing reasons why it couldn't be done, they were doing it. Excuses are a seductive comfort. They offer relief. They let you off the hook. They soothe your ego and protect you from the pain of failure, at least temporarily. But they come with a heavy cost. Every excuse you allow takes you one step further from the life you were meant to live. Every time you say, "I can't," without testing whether you truly can, you shrink your identity. And when enough of those statements stack up, you begin to believe the lie that you were never capable in the first place. That is how mediocrity wins. Slow, quietly, with your permission. The uncommitted blame circumstances. They point to the economy, the government, their upbringing, their spouse, their job. They build a case against their own success. And here's what's terrifying. They often believe they are being rational. But true power begins the moment you say, "I am responsible, not for everything that happens to you, but for how you respond, for what you decide, for the direction you move in despite the odds." Excuses are disloyalty to your future. They protect your current comfort at the cost of your future potential. It is easier to say, "I'll start later," than to admit you're afraid. It is easier to say, "I'm too busy," than to admit you've mismanaged your priorities. But greatness is never born in convenience. It is carved out of the uncomfortable, the inconvenient, and the uncertain. Look closely at your own life. What goals have you postponed in the name of patience, when the truth is you've simply lacked persistence? The deeper truth, what dreams have you let go of telling yourself it just wasn't meant to be, when in reality you gave up too soon? Here is the truth that winners understanding. The path will always be filled with reasons not to begin. The timing will rarely feel perfect. The money will often seem scarce. The knowledge might not be complete. But the committed act anyway. They work with what they have, and they get stronger as they move forward. They understand that excuses don't build empires. Execution does. Excuses are mental graffiti. They clutter the mind with limitations and distract you from your purpose. If you catch yourself explaining why something isn't possible, stop and ask yourself, is this the truth, the deeper truth? Or is this a protective story I built to shield myself from effort, risk, or rejection? Most of the time, you'll discover it's the latter. You must train your mind to recognize the language of the uncommitted. The moment you hear yourself saying, "I'll try," replace it with, "I will." When you hear, "I can't," ask, "How can I?" When you hear, "Now's not the right," counter with, "Now is the only time I have." This is not about ignoring reality. It's about refusing to be imprisoned by it. There is no room for excuses in a life of purpose. The longer you tolerate your own justifications, the further you drift from the discipline that success demands. Stop giving yourself a way out. Burn the bridge behind you so there is only one direction left, forward. And remember this: every excuse you make, someone else has already faced and overcome. They had less support, fewer resources, and greater obstacles. Yet they moved, they pushed, they persisted. Not because it was easy, but because they were committed. They were not casual participants in their dreams. They were warriors for them. The commitment does not negotiate with difficulty. It doesn't wait for motivation. It does not need perfect conditions. It simply decides and then demands that everything else aligns. That is the mindset that builds legacies. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I can't, I don't know how, it's too late, or I'll do it wing, pause. Look yourself in the mirror and ask, am I committed or am I just interested? Because the interested will always find excuses. Only the committed find results. Excuses are the language of the uncommitted. If you want your life to change, you must change your language. Speak with clarity. Speak with conviction. Speak with action. Your future doesn't understand. Maybe. It responds only to one word. Yes. There is one force, one emotion that has destroyed more dreams, delayed more destinies, and defeated more men and women than any war or economic collapse in history. That force is fear. It slips in silently, often unnoticed. It disguises itself as prudence, caution, or realism. But make no mistake, fear is not just a feeling. It is a belief system. It is a corrupted version of faith. Because what is fear, really? It is faith. Misused, misdirected, reversed. Faith is the ability to believe in the unseen, to trust in the yet-to-be, to hold in your heart a picture of a better future and act as though it's already yours. But fear does the same, only in the wrong direction. Fear imagines failure before it happens. Fear visualizes loss, rejection, embarrassment, poverty, and death, often where none of it truly exists. It is the ability to create a vivid picture of what you don't want, and then react to it as if it were reality. Understand this, your mind does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. If you consistently think about things going wrong, if you dwell on what might fall apart, your body will respond as though you're in danger. Your decisions will shrink. Your energy will drop, your clarity will vanish, and worst of all, you will hesitate. And hesitation in the pursuit of any worthy goal is the beginning of defeat. Fear convinces you to wait when you should move. It persuades you to settle when you should strive. It tells you to keep quiet when you should speak, to hold back when you should charge forward. And it always comes with a convincing story, because fear is clever. The deeper truth, it will tell you just be careful, or let's play it safe, or what if you fail? But what it won't tell you is what you risk losing by listening to it. The man who obeys fear lives a quiet life of slow decay. He may avoid risk, but he also avoids reward. He may stay safe, but he never soars. He may survive, but he never truly lives. The worst thing about fear is that it doesn't need to be true to be powerful. It only needs to be believed. And the more you surrender to it, the more it grows. Every time you allow fear to control your decisions, you strengthen its grip. It's like feeding a wild animal. Each time you give it what it wants, it becomes bolder. Eventually, it roams freely in your life, dictating where you go, what you do, and who you become. But the opposite is also true. The more you act in spite of fear, the more courage you develop. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward regardless of it. Every person who has ever done something significant has felt fear. The difference is, they didn't let it stop them. They recognized fear for what it is, the test of belief, a signal to step forward, not back. Think about this. Fear and faith both ask you to believe in something you cannot see. Fear says, what if I lose everything? Faith says, would I gain everything? Fear says, you'll embarrass yourself. Faith says, you'll inspire others. Fear says, don't try, you'll fail. Faith says, try. And even if you fail, you'll grow. Fear is a misuse of the imagination. It corrupts the creative faculty of your mind and turns it against you. The same energy you use to picture a brighter future can be twisted into a nightmare loop of doubt and worry. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to worship your fears. You'll plan your life around avoiding discomfort rather than chasing greatness. You must decide who you will serve, faith or fear, because you cannot serve both. Every choice you make either strengthens your belief in victory or reinforces your fear of defeat. If you're going to imagine a future, imagine one worth living for. Use your mind as it was designed to create, not to shrink, to build, not to barricade. The sad truth is that most people are hypnotized by fear. They don't even realize it. They talk about what they want, but their actions are dictated by what they're trying to avoid. They want success, but they fear rejection. They want love, but they fear vulnerability. They want freedom, but they fear failure. So they live in limbo, always moving, never arriving, always hoping, never deciding. But the man who lives by faith, true faith in his power, his calling, and his vision, is unstoppable. He may face obstacles, yes. He may fall, but he rises, because his belief is not based on what he sees. It's based on what he knows. And he knows that fear is a liar. You must expose your fear for what it is, a shadow, a phantom. It is only as powerful as you allow it to be. The moment you name it, confront it, and act in spite of it, you strip it of its power. The only way to break free from fear is to do the very thing it tells you not to do. That conversation you're afraid to have. Have it, that risk you've been avoiding. Take it, that dream you've been sitting on. Start it. The fastest way to silence fear is through action. Not perfect action, not fearless action, bold action. Because fear will never go away entirely. It will always whisper. But you get to decide whether it becomes your guide or your prisoner. You can either let fear direct your path, or you can let faith drive your purpose. When you choose fear, you delay your destiny. When you choose faith, you accelerate it. You don't need more time. You don't need more resources. You need more belief. Belief in yourself, in your vision, and in your Creator-given ability to do hard things. The fear is faith in reverse. If you're going to believe in something, believe in your future. Believe in your power. Believe in what's possible. Because what you believe, you build. There is a quiet epidemic that infects bright minds and brave hearts alike. It creeps in softly, wrapped in the illusion of prudence, disguised as patience, and paraded as common sense. The deeper truth, this epidemic is the habit of waiting. It whispers that the timing isn't right. It tells you that you need one more skill, one more dollar, one more endorsement. It convinces you that success depends on external conditions lining up perfectly. But each moment you wait is a moment your dream slips further from reach. Every hour spent waiting is a brick added to the tomb of your own potential. Consider the irony in our greatest victories. The conditions were rarely ideal. Empires were built in the aftermath of war. The fortunes were won during depressions, and breakthroughs were achieved in the face of fierce opposition. Those who triumph understand that perfect timing is a myth. The market will not pause its cycles to accommodate your comfort level. Opportunities arrive in imperfect packages and demand action in incomplete conditions. Yet so many hesitate, hoping for a sign, a blessing, or a green light. They confuse readiness with perfection, and in doing so, they postpone their destiny indefinitely. To wait is to wage war on your own ambition. It's akin to standing on a treadmill set to its slowest speed, watching the landscape rush by while you remain rooted in place. The treadmill of waiting eats away at your confidence and dulls your creative edge. As you delay, fear multiplies, skepticism deepens, and enthusiasm cools to indifference. You build elaborate plans and gather ever more information. Convincing yourself that depth of preparation will substitute for the momentum that only decisive action can produce. But history is not written by the over-preparers. It's written by the bold, the ones who step off the treadmill and onto the battlefield, weapon in hand, heart on fire. Waiting also breeds excuses. When you convince yourself that the moment isn't right, you create justification to avoid discomfort. You tell yourself that you're simply doing your due diligence, that you're playing the long game. But under the guise of strategy, you're really feeding inertia. Excuses flourish when action is deferred. They find shelter in your fear and patience, growing roots so deep that eventually you believe them as truth. What began as a prudent pause becomes a permanent stalling ground, and the dream you once held begins to feel like an echo from someone else's life. The gravest danger of waiting is the erosion of self-trust. Every time you delay a decision, every time you push your goal off to sometime soon, you undermine your belief in your own reliability. You send a message to your subconscious that you are not to be counted on, that you are someone who puts off until tomorrow what you could do today. And this loss of self-trust is more crippling than any external obstacle could be. When you no longer trust yourself to act, everything else feels impossible. Motivation vanishes, discipline falters, and even the loftiest aspirations shrink into distant memories. Contrast this with the mindset of the achiever. The person who refuses to wait understands that speed is an ally. Not reckless speed, but bold, intelligent speed. They recognize that learning accelerates in real time, that momentum creates clarity, and that each action, whether labeled success or failure, becomes fuel for the journey ahead. These individuals treat every moment as an opportunity. They seize the scraps of possibility that others dismiss as insufficient. They understand that doing something imperfectly is always superior to doing nothing perfectly, because movement breeds progress, and progress breeds confidence. Waiting also obscures reality. When you linger, you build castles of hope that often crumble under scrutiny. You romanticize the future, imagining that once the perfect conditions arrive, everything will flow effortlessly. Yet when that moment finally comes, if it ever does, you find that the world has moved on. The challenge you prepared for has evolved. The opportunity you awaited has passed, and you are left with a collection of stale plans and faded anticipation. The world does not wait for you, and the clock does not rewind. Every tick carries you further from the starting line. Breaking the habit of waiting requires a radical acceptance of uncertainty. It demands the courage to act without guarantee of success. It requires you to redefine what it means to be ready. Instead of seeking flawless conditions, you learn to trust your resourcefulness. You trade hesitancy for curiosity, viewing each obstacle as a chance to learn rather than a signal to retreat. You practice making decisions quickly in course, correcting just as fast. You come to view momentum as your greatest asset and indecision as the heaviest anchor. Gradually, you rebuild a reputation with yourself. Proof that you will not only dream, but also do. To escape the graveyard of dreams, you must take your first step now. You must commit to constant, imperfect action. The deeper truth. You must replace "I'll wait" with "I will begin now." You must run toward discomfort, not away from it. For when you do, you'll discover that the perfect moment is not some predetermined date on a calendar, but the very instant you choose to act. That is when conditions shift in your favor, not before. That is when the universe takes notice, aligning people, resources, and circumstances around your unwavering resolve. The habit of waiting is seductive, but it is also deadly. It lulls you into inaction with promises of safety while it buries your ambitions beneath layers of delay. But you have a choice. You can continue to wait for a future that may never arrive, or you can harness the only resource that truly matters, the present moment. Decide today that your purpose is more urgent than your fears. Decide that your dreams are worth the discomfort of acting in the unknown, and then step forward, boldly, relentlessly, without a backward glance. In that one decision lies the power to resurrect every dream you have ever buried. There is a space where most people live. It is familiar, it feels safe. The routines are predictable, the risks are few, and the demands are minimal. This space is called the comfort zone, and while it may feel like a sanctuary, it is in truth a silent killer. Not of the body, but of the spirit. Not of breath, but of dreams. It is the slow suffocation of potential, masked as peace. It is the death of greatness, disguised as ease. The comfort zone does not announce its intentions. It does not knock down your door or raise its voice. Instead, it whispers softly, lulling you into stillness with assurances that you're doing enough, that growth is optional, and that challenge is unnecessary. It tells you to stay where you are, to do what you've always done, and to expect different results simply because you wish for them. And the longer you listen, the more you become its prisoner. The comfort zone is not a place. It is a mindset. The deeper truth, it is the decision to prioritize familiarity over progress. It is the refusal to challenge your limitations because they've become part of your identity. You convince yourself that your current level of effort is sufficient, that your life is already good enough. But here's the brutal truth. Good enough is the sworn enemy of exceptional. And exceptional is the only standard that leads to true fulfillment. Comfort is deceptive because it feels like success. You may have a stable job, a decent income, a predictable schedule. You may be free of chaos, the struggle, or immediate danger, but safety is not the same as satisfaction. Predictability is not the same as purpose. You can live a life that looks successful from the outside and be utterly bankrupt within, void of passion, hunger, and growth. Comfort is a slow leak in the tire of your ambition. At first, you don't notice. But over time, you lose your drive, your momentum, and eventually your direction. Every dream that has ever been realized required someone to step beyond their comfort zone. The growth cannot happen where fear has been allowed to build walls. Muscles are not strengthened without resistance. Skills are not sharpened without challenge. Minds are not expanded without exposure to the unfamiliar. And souls are not ignited without discomfort. The comfort zone is where creativity goes to die. When you do the same things in the same way with the same people, day after day, you stop thinking. You stop imagining. You stop questioning. You live by default, not by design. You become reactive instead of proactive. You survive instead of thrive. And the tragedy is that many people mistake this stagnation for stability. But there is no such thing as standing still. You are either growing or declining. There is no neutral in the human experience. One of the greatest lies ever told is that discomfort is to be avoided. That struggle is bad. That pain is a problem. But discomfort is not the enemy. It is the signpost that you are expanding. When your heart races, your hands shake, and your voice trembles, it means you're stretching into a new dimension of yourself. The pain of growth is temporary, but the pain of regret, of a life unlived, lasts forever. You were not created for mediocrity. You were not designed to stay small. Within you is a power, a fire, a force that can only be accessed when you dare to leave behind what is easy. The journey to greatness begins with one decisioning, to walk willingly into discomfort, to pursue the path that scares you, not because you want to suffer, but because you want to evolve. There is no breakthrough without discomfort. Every major shift in your life will come with a moment when you must face the unknown, a business you're unsure of, a relationship that challenges you, a dream that terrifies you. You can either shrink back into safety or you can lean into the fear and break through. And every time you choose discomfort over ease, your comfort zone expands. What once felt terrifying becomes routine. What once seemed impossible becomes expected. You grow, and with growth comes freedom, the freedom to create, to express, to achieve, and to become. The enemy of your future is not failure. It's the refusal to attempt. It's the belief that your current reality is the best you can do. You must refuse to let comfort write your story. You must wake up every day and ask yourself, what am I avoiding? And then run toward that thing. Whether it's a conversation, a commitment, a change, or a chance, run toward it. That is how the winners live. Winners do not ask for things to be easier. They demand that they become stronger. They seek resistance because they know it makes them better. They understand that every discomfort is a doorway. On the other side of that door is the next version of themselves, stronger, wiser, bolder. But you only get there by pushing through. The comfort zone is the enemy of legacy. It is the great seducer of potential. It makes you forget who you are and why you started. It quiets your fire. It dulls your edge. It tells you to be content, not because you fulfilled your purpose, but because you've stopped reaching. And one day, if you do not break free, you'll look back and realize that the life you settled for was a shadow of the one you were capable of living. So destroy the walls. Tear down the lies. Step into the unknown. Speak when your voice shakes. Act when your hands tremble. Leap when your feet hesitate, because in those moments, you are becoming. You're remembering that you are more than comfort. You are a creator, a builder, a warrior. The comfort zone may offer safety, but it will never offer significance. Choose growth. Choose discomfort. Choose a life that demands more from you, and in doing so, gives more to you. The deeper truth, that is where your greatest lives, not in the known, but in the edge. Every individual alive is building a life. Whether consciously or unconsciously, you are constructing the future brick with every choice you make, every habit you repeat, and, most dangerously, every excuse you allow. You may think that your standards are defined by your goals or by what you hope to achieve. But in reality, your true standard is revealed in what you're willing to tolerate. What you permit, you promote. What you accept, you become. Excellence is not built in the high moments, in the speeches or the declarations. The deeper truth, it's built in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, when there's no applause, when the choice is between the hard right or the easy wrong. It's in how you respond to being tired. It's in how you act when no one holds you accountable. It's in whether you finish what you start or let it slide. Every time you tolerate something beneath your potential, you take a step away from the person you could be. And over time, those small compromises shape your identity. You become what you tolerate in your habits. You might say you want to be fit, focused, or financially free. But if you tolerate procrastination, laziness, or distraction, your outcomes will reflect your tolerance, not your aspirations. You might believe you're destined for leadership or entrepreneurship. But if you tolerate confusion, if you tolerate disorganization, if you tolerate staying in your comfort zone because it's familiar, the deeper then that dream will remain a theory, not a reality. The harsh truth is this: your life will never rise above what you're willing to accept as good enough. Many people carry big dreams but live with small standards. They speak of greatness but tolerate mediocrity in their attitude, in their relationships, in their daily routines. They talk about abundance but tolerate financial recklessness. They talk about impact but tolerate passivity and avoidance. The result, a life that looks nothing like the vision. The blueprint might be clear, but if the foundation is built on tolerance of weakness, the structure will collapse under pressure. You must examine your life with brutal honesty. Look at your health, look at your income, look at your relationships, look at your mindset. Every area that frustrates you is not just a sign of misfortune, it's a signal of something you have allowed, something you permitted to remain, something you haven't yet demanded more from. You must stop blaming circumstances and start raising your standards. When you decide that certain behaviors, excuses, or thought patterns are no longer acceptable, you reclaim your power. The deeper truth. But as long as you allow them to live in your life, they will continue to grow roots. You become what you tolerate in your environment. The people you allow around you influence how you think, what you believe is possible, and how you behave. If you tolerate negativity, gossip, laziness, or mediocrity from your inner circle, it will eventually infect your own standards. Energy is contagious. Mindset is transferable. If you surround yourself with people who expect little from themselves, they will expect little from you, and you will start to match their rhythm. Raise the bar on your environment. Surround yourself with those who challenge your complacency, who demand excellence from themselves and from you. If your standards make people uncomfortable, good. That's the point. Your future should not be comfortable for those who are committed to staying the same. You also become what you tolerate mentally. The thoughts you allow to repeat in your mind become your beliefs. The deeper truth, and your beliefs shape your actions. If you tolerate self-doubt, if you tolerate the belief that you are not ready, not good enough, or not lucky, then those beliefs become the lens through which you view every opportunity. And opportunities don't wait for you to believe in yourself. They show up, and either you step up or you step back. When you tolerate weakness in thought, you invite weakness in execution. You must become ruthless with your self-talk. Replace passivity with power. Replace hesitation with decisiveness. Replace excuse-making with ownership. High achievers don't tolerate disempowering thoughts because they understand that those thoughts, if left unchecked, become behaviors. And behaviors become patterns, and patterns become identity. The beautiful thing is that this principle works in reverse. Just as you can become weak by tolerating weakness, you can become strong by refusing to allow it. Every time you say, "That's not acceptable anymore," and take action to change it, you raise your standard. And with every elevated standard, you shift your identity. You become someone who doesn't quit, someone who doesn't negotiate with laziness, someone who holds the line, especially when it's inconvenient. You become what you tolerate in discipline. If you tolerate inconsistency in your work ethic, the deeper truth, your results will be inconsistent. If you tolerate skipping the work when you're tired or distracted, you'll never develop the muscle of perseverance. The champions are not built on motivation. They're built on standards. They don't wait until they feel like doing the work. They decide that the work must be done, and so it is. No bargaining, no backing down. The final truth is this: you don't get what you wish for in life. You get what you demand, not from others, from yourself. You get the quality of life that reflects the quality of what you refuse to tolerate. A person with low tolerance for mediocrity becomes excellent by default because mediocrity has no place in their world. They speak differently, walk differently, commit differently. Their life looks different because their standards are different. So what are you tolerating? What excuses are you allowing? What behaviors have you given a home to, even though you know they're sabotaging your future? What patterns are quietly killing your momentum? Identify, name them, eradicate them. And when you do, you'll feel it. The return of power, the reawakening of purpose, the emergence of the version of you who was always buried beneath the weight of tolerance. Raise your standards. Burn the safety net. The deeper truth, refuse to live one more day making peace with things that do not serve your destiny, because you become what you tolerate, and you are meant for far more than you've allowed. The journey to greatness does not begin in the world. It begins in the mind, not with what you do, but how you think. The patterns of thought you entertain today will become the realities of your tomorrow. And make no mistake, if you think like a victim, you will live like one. If you wait for permission, you will live in delay. If you chase comfort, you will inherit mediocrity. And if you tolerate weakness, excuses, the deeper truth, or distraction, you will become the very thing you despise. But if you dare to think with discipline, if you train your mind to reject passivity, if you demand excellence from yourself even when no one is watching, then you separate yourself from the average. Then you rise. Because the winners of this world are not the lucky. They are the ones who refuse to wait. They are the ones who chose discomfort over stagnation, movement over excuse, and intention over wishful thinking. You must decide that your vision is non-negotiable. That no matter how high the cost, no matter how long the road, no matter how loud the fear, you will not settle for anything less than your fullest potential. Your thoughts must be governed by purpose, not emotion. The deeper, you must kill the belief that conditions must be perfect, because the only perfect time is now. You must silence the habit of delay, because the longer you wait, the weaker your will becomes. Deeper truth, and you must make war on the comfort zone, because comfort is not your friend. It is your silent assassin. Raise your standards until mediocrity feels offensive. Break free from the lie that says, one day, and replace it with this day. Eliminate every thought that permits you to shrink. Every time you hesitate, remind yourself, I become what I tolerate. Let the truth echo so loudly that it drowns out every excuse, every fear, every impulse to retreat. You don't need more time. You don't need more approval. You don't need a perfect plan. You need to decide. Decide to think differently. Decide to move now. Decide that you will no longer be held hostage by small thinking, low standards, or mental passivity. Decide that you were not born to be average. The deeper truth, you were born to win, but only if you think like a winner, and winners think differently.